they get quicker results. Is that,
yeah.
is that it? Okay.
They should see, not necessarily quicker, but more higher value results at least.
Okay. Higher value results.
Higher quality results. It's not necessarily going to be quicker. It probably would be quicker.
Okay. Well, what would they have to give up? Because one of the things that I see, one of the resistant points, is giving up that control. They don't want to be transparent. You know, they have it's turf wars, it's power. It's that holding on to their.
Well, it would introduce focus for people to get stuff done, because I see fairly often that there'll be conflicting vision coming out of C-level all at the same time, all wanting the same resources and all feeling they're as important, whereas Scrum would introduce the prioritizing for a different period of time and say, well, okay, for this sprint we're focusing on this particular aspect of strategy or vision, and we're not kind of diluting by trying to do all these other things at the same time.
Okay, and so speaking of that, how would you see it structured within a management team?
I don't have a huge amount of experience with broad range of companies, but just speaking within ours, it's pretty flat structure already, and our product owners aren't necessarily all executive director level, but they do have ready access to the CEO. So
that's all you need, right?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think they need to have a title. They just need to
the title doesn't matter. It just means that they need to be right. So the dirty secret is that if you look at this diagram, the Scrum model of that diagram is this. Is that this area is unnecessary, right? Because of the self-managing structure of Scrum, you don't need that second level of resource management and project management and stuff like that, which is a majority of other managers. Right?
So you can go to the C-level and say, hey, you can cut your payroll budget because you can just eliminate all the middlemen.
In a way, I mean, it's scary as it sounds, right? Because of the inherent self-governing structure of Scrum, you actually look at the overlap of work and the value you get for that position. This two-layer is not necessary. Now, this is really hard, right? If you're able to, most likely what you're going to do is superimpose another team here, right? So we're doing, but this is another team and it's parallel to your organization, right? But you can figure out that if this product owner is now at this level, right? Then that person is just closer. I'm not talking about directorship, but you're just closer to the people who can make the decision. So I think Scrum at the C-level requires us to move the bottom up and the top down closer together, right? And the tactics to do that, I don't know, right? But there are many ways to do it. Every company is different. I'm sure you've seen that. But if we can get to that point, then the product owner is more empowered. The executive can see the results more directly, have more ready resources, fewer people getting in your way, cut the payroll, and have those money go towards more capacity, right? But this is really hard, like to cut out two layers.
I agree with that, and it does work. Our company are at that stage now, where
you're lucky. You have this.
Yeah, but they're not necessarily doing Scrum though. So what happens is too many things get thrown over the fence at the same time, and they carry importance because of who's throwing them. So that distracts the production teams and distracts the product owners. The product owners are getting pulled. Yeah, they can't focus on a few things well. They're having to focus on many things not so well.
But that speaks to the self-direction down below, and that speaks to the enablement of those above to the ones below to say what they're capable of doing and what they're not doing, and to respect that, right?
I think so.
Because the team is supposed to own the estimates of the work that they're doing, right? And it's not the product owner that can force them to do X, Y, and Z if the team is saying they can only do X and Y. So I would see that in the same case here as it would be if we're doing software at a lower level.
Christopher, you said something that's very provoking to me, which is the ability to eliminate layers of management. To me, that's a very compelling case. Marketplace, which is really why I'm excited about this. Yeah. So could you say more about that? Because if that really could be done, right, that's a very powerful statement.
Right, you think about what middle management in larger corporations actually do, right? They allocate resources, they communicate the top ideas to the people who need to know them, right? But, with the product backlog and epic approach, we're creating a shallower, you've said, like, epic to story to task, but no more. Well, that's the only 3 layers of translation we need to do. The CEO should do offsites and like their own meeting quarterly to do the epics, right? With the C-level people. And then you have a bunch of product owners at the high level now because people cleared up and they went up. And they can actually debate with each other with budget. So they're essentially at the level that we usually call the VP of technology, VP of product management, except they're now VP of a product with the customer focus. I'm the VP of our software just as a service business. I'm the VP of our box service. I'm our VP of a commercial support professional service, right? Great. You might still all use the same engineering resource underneath it. Now that's a much more interesting conversation than the proportion of money we give to product management or proportion to support or IT infrastructure. None of that makes any sense to me, right? But if they are product owner in the way that they control the product and what goes in and out of it, and they have direct access to CEO, then I think this structure leads to this concept that you don't need your director of QA, right? Like, I mean, the function of QA could be some other way, and that we don't have to talk about that. We know how that's done.
Well, part of what you're talking about is changing the structure around products instead of around functions.
Yes.
Right. So you no longer have a director of operations and a director of engineering and a director of
Vice
marketing,
President of semicolons,
whatever it is, right?
VP of white space.
And this is the problem. So you want to create a product. I'm building this widget. I need people from operations to work on it. I need people from engineering to work on it. I need people from marketing to work on it. But those are the fiefdoms that are fighting against each other. And so instead of looking at a product, you're looking at functions.
Yeah.
And the company doesn't sell functions. I mean, I guess some service companies you could say could. But from my background, I work in a company that makes a physical product. And the structure of the company is on functions. And so when you say cross-functional team, well, the C level or just below that needs to become a cross-functional team instead of functional silos.
We have to redefine what VP and senior directors do, how they are, what their roles are, and what they're responsible for, and I think that's product owner, right? So I mean, we don't have a session on product ownership, but like that's what I learned. Like the product owner needs to be empowered, and it seems like a crazy idea because I think with Scrum being a bottom organization, by the time you get a product owner, you're at level whatever, like a kind of manager. But like if you go top down and thinking in this way, it's like wait a minute, right after the business unit P&L owner is the product owner. If you logically think of this thing based on ethics and prioritization. This is big. I mean, we're talking about a new way of organizing middle management around products and the empowerment that comes with it, which is also completely consistent with the authority that they need to have.
But okay, so if we get rid of the functions, because we were talking about this a little earlier in your board session, when the product is done, because what you're really talking about is a more project-based approach to an organizational structure. So when the project is done, what happens to that VP? Or
they get a new comma, whatever comes out comma, they would be, let's say you base on your software as a box in a box product, right? That you're all SaaS, and maybe say, well, maybe SaaS for federal government, SaaS for SMB, right? So you can redefine what those roles are as far as what the product goal and mission is, but you can still have 3 product owners around 3 things. So you can phase out your legacy business once that's done, and keep your VPs, or they may not be the right people because they're .NET, the Win32 people. You need someone that you let them go.
And who reassigns them? In other words, who's responsible for assigning VPs to the new roles?
The CEO does that because that should be aligned with the company's products and the go-to-market strategy. I don't know. I mean, I just what I think. I mean, I've seen it in pockets done, but it's not been. I think some of the newer companies like Amazon will have a VP in charge of the wireless products, right? So like all the Amazon like selling cell phones and stuff like that, it would have a person that's in charge of the Kindle product, right? So that's much closer to a VP in charge of a particular product area. You see that more in Google as well. But in traditional companies, it's mostly functional. I don't know what the VP of QA in Google would do. Right? I don't think they have one, right? So like they may have one, but I don't know what they do. But all the ones you hear about and you see speaking conference engage with are a VP of a particular product. So that's clearly a model that's working.
Right.
But it's not how it works in the rest of the world.
Okay, well, going back to what really worked, I mean, how things really are now, how could we bring Scrum, and this is great, I am super excited about this concept, and I think it's worth exploring more. I'm not sure we want to spend all our time on that, but if anyone else has ideas, I'm really open to it. The other thing I wanted to talk about is bringing, a little more practical to what exists today. I wanted to share some examples of what some people are doing in corporate, at C-levels that I know of that are Scrum-like. There's a guy named Vern Harnish. Have you heard of him? He has a website called gazelles.com.
Yeah.
And he's borrowed the concept of daily stand-ups, daily meetings and weekly meetings. Traditionally in corporations, in the old days they used to do 15-year plans, and they went down to 3 to 5-year plans, and they do these offsites, and it would take them a year or 6 months to do a strategic plan. And I think that's just completely, it's not effective in today's global competitive marketplace. So what Harnish has people do, he says that Rockefeller, one of the things he did was he'd have all his lieutenants, his VPs or whatever, they would have lunch together every day, and they would always talk about what was going on. So he extrapolated that, and he took the concept of stand-ups from Scrum into daily meetings. And he asked 3 questions, not exactly the same. I have them here. I'll look it up in a minute. But basically, they're similar to what the questions you ask in a Scrum stand-up. And then he has weekly meetings, and he has a cascading pyramid of value. And and so he's taking those principles. So that's one example. Another guy named Chris Avery. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He talks a lot about responsibility versus laying blame. And he says that in many organizations and in life, our tendency when something goes wrong is to blame someone else. And in reality, a higher level of a more effective approach is to learn how to be responsible. Say, look, I had something to do with that, I screwed up or whatever. So those are 2 examples where people, I think, are doing things that are a little more open, honest, courageous, maybe Scrum-like. Anybody else hear of anything like that?
A concept that I've helped introduce at our company, but didn't get implemented the way it should have, in my opinion, was what they started naming as a war room concept.
What?
A war room.
War room.
But there's a better place online where they talk about an epic wall or an epic task board, right? So that you have a clear definition or a larger definition of the big vision of different projects, and that allows the executive team to make priority calls and adjustments of those bigger projects at the high level. That would feed down to the product owners, is that sort of thing. And our company has started doing, they started calling it the war room, and they meet every day and they go over all the projects and things that are going on. The thing that's lacking is they seem to lack the power or the willpower to say no to things, and so they continue to try to do too many things at once. So there's some work to do there, but there's a blog somewhere online where somebody introduced this epic task board. So it's like an epic. You have an epic story, and it does say, oh, did this team reach milestone X? Release 0.5 or whatever it was. Yes, that's done. And they actually do a task board, but all those tasks are big epics. And it allows the CEOs then to choose and prioritize and feed the vision down.
I think one of the words that we use that I think is missing something is prioritization or proportionality. The word proportionality is important, right? Because if I know that I'm going to invest 60% of my energy in my SaaS product and 20% in a box, right? So what the story I committed to low level should reflect that ratio on an iteration and iteration basis on average, right? So I think the epic board is one that shows prioritization, let's say post-linearization, but it should also say we should spend no more than 10% of our time doing this, right? Is that concept there, or is there a place for kind of essentially proportional budgeting?
Proportional budgeting has its place, but I think it's a pit, right?